Now that the blade is ready to go, I've got it locked in the vise. I'm taking the end of the wire here and feeding the spaghetti over it. If for any reason it gets caught, you can always rotate it clockwise, and that usually creates the appropriate torque or twist to feed it in, just like that. Once it's out, of course, you can feed it. You want to get it right to the end, right to the edge where the blade and the tang meet. The other issue that we have is that since this is a pistol grip, I need to figure out the length on that. So I'm going to take the handle and bring it all the way down. And I like to use a Sharpie to just mark the blade where it needs to be cut. There are two ways you can do this. The old-fashioned way would be to take the hacksaw, which is up on the tool there, and find your mark. And I guess I can get it started. So I see the mark on the blade. I'm going to lock the blade in tight and move this back a little so we can see. And take the hacksaw. If I need to remark it, I will. Okay. So, yeah, right there. And, oops. And go ahead and make your cut all the way through with your hacksaw. If you're feeling slightly more 20th century about cutting the blade tang, then a Dremel tool will work. Remember, whenever you use a Dremel, always wear protective eyewear. And we're going to mount the foil. So, meaning that we're going to put all the handle and everything else on. We saw how to cut the tang, if needed, with a hacksaw. And there's a little bit of a rough edge on that, if you can see. And so I'm just going to smooth that down with a file. We have a file right here, and again, if you feel 21st century, you can always use the Dremel. So it will be nice and smooth. You see there's a good reflection in there. We're going to go ahead and unravel that extra wire from the tang. And if you are not sure about the wire, especially if you made the wire yourself, you can always put the ohm meter ends, put it on the resistance setting, so you can just check for continuity between the end of the wire and the contact. We're locking the blade in the vise, and we're going to get some tubing. So this again is just a piece of generic tubing that's too long for what we need. But we want to make sure that we don't overdo it, but there has to be enough give, enough extra tubing on there in case something breaks and you need to trim. So I'm going to take this, it's maybe 4 or 5 inches of tubing. I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to feed it onto the wire. just as we did with the other blade. Once we get a little bit of the wire out, it's easy just to pull that down. And here, once you have the tubing come down, make sure try to be as flush with the edge of the blade and the tang as you can. It should actually fit right into the groove. If you have too much, that could be a problem. And if you go too far back, then it's possible that if your handle rotates, or if the socket rotates, or even if the bell guard rotates, that it will clip your wire or strip it and cause a grounding problem. So I'm going to put just about that much extra. Again, I'm locking it down in the vise. We start with the bell guard. We go next with the socket. And it's not required, but you can see that there is this little hole in the socket for you to feed the wire through. So after you get it through the main hole where the blade and tang will go through, you feed that in, and then I like to feed that wire up. And you want to get the tubing through there as well, so your tubing is coming out of that hole, and now you can feed the socket down. When you're looking at the socket mount, there should be two little divots, and one is for right-handed, one is for left-handed, and since it's right-handed, it's going to be this way, so we want that divot to be up there. If there's not a divot, you can use a file to cut one out. And you want the tube to go above where your thumb will be, so I'm going to dismount this just to show. This is how the wire will go under the bell guard. The next thing that's going to come down is the thumb pad. So I'm taking a standard thumb pad. The electric ones will have this divot in it. And we're just lining that up. Next will be the handle and the pommel, and then we'll have to trim the wire and put the whole thing together. So the handle comes next, onto the tang. Usually one lock washer will suffice, but if you feel that you need more, you can always put more. And because this is a pistol grip, we're going to use the hex wrench to lock it down. Now that we're locked down, we need to strip the insulation. Spin this around so you can see it. There's, remember on the German, on the blue wire, there's a physical insulation and a chemical insulation. I'm going to trim this so it is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches before the tubing begins. There are two ways you can do this. You can take some kind of wire stripper and pull that blue insulation off, which we'll do here. So I have a wire stripper. It goes to a 26 gauge wire, which is hard to get. So if you can't find a wire stripper that goes that small, you can just use a lighter, and the lighter will burn off the physical and chemical coating. And I have to use a lighter for the chemical coating. So I'm taking a lighter and I'm just taking it to the wire. So while that burns it, it doesn't totally remove it, so I need to get my scrubber pad that we said could remove the rust. And I'm not using the rough edge, I'm using the smooth side and holding my thumb down on it and pulling it across until I can see a shiny copper wire. Once that's done, I'm ready to unscrew the nut here. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to use this curved plier nose to hold the bottom nut. I'm going to unscrew that so I get a little bit of a gap between that nut. And then all I need to do is feed that wire in. And you just need to wrap it around once, and that's it. And we're going to hold on to that bottom nut and tighten with our screwdriver until we're tight. So you may have a little extra wire right there. You can see that easily there. And I usually just take the plier and twist a little until that breaks up, and then it should be flush. To test, we need to put in the tip. So this is a German tip, and we're going to put a German wire around this. The barrel is different than a French. And this one, so we're putting the tip back in. We kept everything, all of the screws on this magnet, and these magnets are great. They come from old Bernoulli drives. Some of you will have to look up what that is. So all I'm going to do is lock the blade in the vise, keep the barrel close to the table, preferably even over a magnet if possible. Feed your pressure spring, there, the pressure spring in first. We like to be over the magnet so if our screws fall away, they don't roll off into nowhere. These are small screws. All I'm going to do is push the tip all the way down. Into the barrel. You don't want to strip these. If you bust the head off of a foil screw, you're really, well, in trouble. Once you have one in, that should hold it. We'll go ahead and flip the blade over in the vise and lock in the other screw. Getting the other screw. And the first few times you do this, you may in fact lose the screws, and that's okay. It will happen. But we are locked in. We're going to zoom out and test this. So, unlock the blade from the vise. Just for security's sake, lock it back in. We're taking our test box. This comes with the Absolute kit, the regular foil, body cord, and it should come in with a light, because remember it's grounding. With my foot, I'm going to depress the tip, and I should see that turn off. And we have successfully put our foil back together.